Okay, so we're back, and I just wanted to take another maybe 5 minutes or so to kind of orient you to how you can do some development in this environment that you've just now created. So, uh, we're looking at the title page for the Foundations of Python programming book, and you'll notice that the URL that we're at is localhost/runestone/books/published fopindex.html. Okay, so that's the page that we're on. Now, if we want to translate that into what we do in development work, then let's go to our editor here, bring up the Visual Studio editor, and you'll notice that for a Web2Py application, so I'm in the Runestone server directory here, we have a subfolder called controllers, and so we are in the Runestone application, and there's a controller called books.py, right? So that corresponds to Runestone is the application, books is the controller, and then published. We have a function called published. So application, controller, function within the controller, and then these are just arguments to the controller. So you'll see that in this published, it just calls another helper routine that's shared by a couple of other places, right? So very often, if you're looking to do something, if you just look at the URL, you can immediately figure out which source file that you want to go to. All right, if we go back to the home page, you'll see there we are, Runestone default. Okay, so now on the page, on these main pages and on the pages that are part of the instructor interface, right? So default is again the controller file, so we can bring up default.py, right? And user here is again sort of a parameter to default. Now, if we look further down in the source tree, you'll see there's views, right? And within views, there's default, right? And you'll see here's a user.html, right? So if all we want to do is make a change to something on this carousel, or let's just change about Runestone here. So let's search for that. About Runestone. All right. And let's just say about Runestone interactive. We'll just make a little tiny change so we can save that view file, right? And if we refresh our page here, we immediately see that reflected in the live system, right? So here we're editing in VS Code, right? But we're editing in the folder of files that's inherited by the Docker container. All right. What if we now want to make a change to one of the books themselves, right? So let's go back to our course. Right? We're in the Foundations of Python Programming book. So let's just go change the title of our book. All right, so how do we find the book? So we've checked out the books, right, under the books folder. Under FOP. So all the sources under sources, and the main file is in index.rst. So here's our index.rst file, and where is our title? Here's our title, Foundations of Python Programming. And let's just make a change to that, and let's call this Brad's Intro to Programming Fall 2020. Okay, now we can save that. And if we come over here and refresh the page again, notice, oh, it's not going to change. So what we have to do in order to make a change in a book is we have to go and we have to build that book. Now to do that, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to get into the container itself and go build the book. So if we want to shell into our running Docker container, we can do that very easily with a docker exec -it, and then we got to know the name of the image, right? So we can do that. We can find that out. Docker compose images will show us the names of the containers. So it's Runestone server underscore Runestone underscore 1. So we can say docker exec -it Runestone server underscore Runestone underscore 1. And what do we want to execute? We just want to start up a bash shell for ourselves there. All right, so there you are. Notice that we're root. Everything is in the container is running as root. And so here we are. So we can change into the applications Runestone books folder, right? And cd into FOPP. All right, and if we look, sources index.rst, get it again, and so there it is. Okay, but now we just need to say Runestone build all deploy. So this will rebuild the entire book. That's what the --all option is doing. And if the build is successful, it will copy it into the published folder. Right, so in this way, you could edit any content you want. If you want to add content, you could add content to a book. If you wanted to carefully reorganize some chapters, you could do that by simply editing this index.rst file, and you'll see that the overall table of contents for the book, we have for every chapter we have a folder, and in that folder we have a toketree.rst file, which is kind of like this index. It's just a file that controls the set of pages that are going to be in that chapter. So moving around the lines here changes the order of your chapters, or you could add content to or change the order of the content in any chapter by going to that toketree file. Okay, so we're done. Back over here, and now that the book has been rebuilt and deployed, if we just refresh the page here, we can see that our change in our book was reflected. Right, so there you have it.